Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOonline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette. And as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today is a martial artist, an author, a teacher, an actor, a stuntman, and more. He was born in Tarzana, California, the son of a wrestling mother and a boxing father. Started his martial arts journey at a very young age, competing in Pee Wee boxing at the age of 5. He's appeared in numerous movies and TV series like Meals on Wheels with Jackie Chan, Roadhouse, Diggstown, Grosse Pointe Blank, Chicago Hope, Alias, Criminal Minds, and more. He started competing in point martial arts tournaments in 1964 after witnessing Bruce Lee's now famous demonstration at the Internationals in Long Beach. Retired from kickboxing with an amazing record of 63 wins and no losses. He's in the W.K.L. Hall of Fame, the Black Belt Hall of Fame, with numerous other awards and recognitions under his name. His autobiography, which you heard me talk about many times, The Jet, co-written with Tom Bleecker, is one of my favorite books. Please welcome my guest today, Sensei Benny the Jet Urquidez. How you doing today, sir?
Very good, thank you. So far.
A lot of stuff there. You've led quite the life. Yeah. Kind of how we like to kick things off with all my guests. I want to go back to the beginning. I know I kind of touched on it that you started boxing at a very young age, but kind of what started that? Was it, I know your dad was a boxer. Was that something that he just decided at a young age to put you in, or did you want to do it?
Actually, when kids at 3 years old had fire trucks, I had boxing gloves. So at the age of 5, I was already competing boxing Pee Wee division at the Olympic Auditorium.
Wow.
And so at the Olympic Auditorium with Sensei Gene LaBelle, actually his mother, Eileen Leeton, owned the Olympic. My sister, Lily, she actually did roller derby. She was on the Bombers, LA Bombers there. And my mother wrestled there with Sensei Gene LaBelle.
Wow.
And I actually fought there and actually started, this is the first time actually I fought the Muay Thai fighter. From 73 to 75, I was fighting the World Series of Martial Arts. So I'm going to back up a little bit just to catch you up.
Yeah, definitely.
And so in 64, I was actually doing Kempo Karate, and this is where I was with Birozaki and Mr. Ed Parker.
Okay.
And so I started training and competing. And then in 64, Bruce Lee came on. That's when I first saw him. And I moved up, and he was talking about internal training. He was talking about the 4-inch strike. And he had this one guy about 250 pounds. He had a metal plate on his chest. And Bruce had his fingers on this metal plate. And he was talking about internal training. My mother is, because she's Indian, also, she used to talk about internal power, but I never understood my mother. But with some reason, Bruce Lee was talking about internal power, how he generates this. I connected and I started to understand what my mother was saying. And he went, and he hit this metal plate. This guy went flying back 4 feet, hit the chair, went over the chair. I jumped up. I said, I want to do that. And from that point on, I asked my brother, Arnold, I said, can I spar with him? And he said, you don't have enough experience. So from that point on, I started to go into every tournament, and I took grand champion in every karate tournament there was. And I told my brother, can I spar with him now? And he said, you don't have enough experience. So then I started, I said, in 70, I started boxing. I figured, this martial arts, bare knuckles. I mean, when we were hitting, foreheads was splitting open. I mean, it was, and throwing on concrete, stomping on concrete, and all the way up until 70, I wanted to actually prove to my brother that I'm worthy to spar with him. So I started boxing professionally with Bobby Chacon and with Randy Shields. I was actually working with him and got Bobby Chacon ready for all his championship bouts. And then my brother, I was just going to turn pro. And my brother said to me, "Do you want to do the full contact karate?" And I said, "What's full contact karate?" And he says, "Well, it's karate to the knockout." And I said, "I won't get disqualified?" He said, "It's to the knockout." And I said, "But I won't get disqualified." I couldn't get it through my head what that meant. So my brother, my youngest brother, Adam, myself, and my brother-in-law, Blinky, we all went to Hawaii, and it was called the World Series of Martial Arts. No rules, no weight divisions, no height, no nothing. It was elimination. So that first day, I fought 7 times.
Wow.
And I stopped 7 of my opponents. The first time I knocked my opponent down, and he got back up. I hit him. This time he was out, and I said, "Oh, here it goes. They're going to disqualify me." And they raised my hand. I said, "All right, I didn't get disqualified." So I completed 7 others, and then the next day I'm supposed to fight 6 more times, and some of the guys didn't want to fight no more. That they had it, so I ended up fighting 3 more times. And the last fight I had, the second to the last fight I had was Bernice White, the Marine champion. And he was 6'3", and I tell you what, he was tough. I mean, talking about marine warfare. We went, and I stopped him in the third round. I stopped him, and so I told my brother-in-law, because there was only 4 of us left. I fought Bernice White, and my brother-in-law was supposed to fight Dana Goodson, which is 6'3", 245 pounds, and he's the Hawaiian favorite. So I told my brother-in-law, if you don't knock him out, you're not going to win. Hey, they're going to give it to him because they don't want to see you and me fight. They want to see, they want to see Samson and Goliath, man. They want to see, they want to see that fight. And sure enough, he went the distance, and he didn't. Dana Goodson got it, and I ended up fighting Dana Goodson. And I knew this was going to happen. So he thought I was going to run from him, but I ran right at him. I chased him like a leech sucking on his blood. I wouldn't let him go. And finally, I won him. And that was my first grand champion, and from full contact karate. Now, I won all these other tournaments, grand champion, all these tournaments, but this was the first full contact karate. If you want to call it MMA, so be it, because there was no rules. No way. Matter of fact, in the 3rd round, I was getting tired, and he started to. I picked him over my head. I'm a good judo man. I picked him up, threw him on the ground. I jumped on top of him, and he started to turn around. I spit my mouthpiece out, and I bit him in the chest.
Wow!
And he palm striked my face, and we both get up, and my teeth marks are on his chest. And he said, "You bit me," and I said, "I was getting tired." And so I ended up stopping him in the 4th, and that was my first title, full contact karate. It was called the World Series of Martial Arts, my first title. And so I told my brother, I came back from Hawaii, and I told my brother, now I deserve to fight Bruce. And then not too much longer after that, he passed away. I never had a chance to. You know what? There was nothing I wanted to prove. I just wanted to test myself, my ability of speed, because I have 9 black belts in 9 different styles, and I created, and I was doing things that I was just ahead of my time, and I wanted to see if this would work against him, and that was the only reason, not for any other reason. And then I ended up teaching his daughter, Shannon Lee, and we did our first movie together. But from that point on, the journey went on, and from 73 to 75, I was defending my title in full contact karate, and then my brother said to me, he was calling me a world champion, and I said, "How can I be a world champion? I haven't been outside the United States doing this." He said, "You want to fight out of the country?" I said, "If you want to call me a world champion, yeah." So he said, "Okay." And then 2 months later, he came back to me and said, "You want to fight Muay Thai?" I said, "Yeah, I'll fight him." I thought that was his name. I had no idea what Muay Thai was. Nobody. This was in 75.
Yep.
And I had no idea what Muay Thai was. And I said, "Yeah, I'll fight him." So they brought 2 Muay Thai fighters from Thailand, 2 champions. And Ernest Hart fought the first one. And Ernest Hart was beating him, and then he got stopped in the 3rd round. So then I come out, and he's, and I'm in the corner, and he's doing his prayer. I never seen that before. I never knew what it was. And his music, so I kind of just rocking to his music, and so the Thai people think I'm making fun of him. And I never seen that. So I was just kind of moving with the music. And when he finished, he got up and he came toward me and he seemed like shooting an awe at me. And I smiled and put my thumbs up. And he was pissed. Man, he was mad. He went back and whatever he was saying to his corner man, all I know is the bell rang. He came at me. And he, now I had Charlie horses before, but I've never had anybody try to break my legs. He hit me so hard, my eyes bulged out of my forehead.
Wow.
And so I'm a high jumper. Matter of fact, I almost went to the Guinness Book of Records from a standing position, jumping 7 feet high. This guy was kicking my thighs. I was jumping over his legs because I didn't know what else to do. So in the second round, I was telling my brother, what do I do? He says, kick him back. And I said, oh, yeah. I went back and I just kicked him as hard as I could. And he leg checked me. Oh, my God, that hurt it worse.
Wow.
Man, my shins were hurting like crazy. It was like I was pulsating in my forehead because I've never felt that. And then in the third round, I told my brother, I said, he smells bad, brother. Whatever it is, my eyes are burning. And I see them spraying something on his shins in the corner. And I said, well, whatever they're doing, man, my eyes are burning. And he said, stick and move. And I said, okay. So I started dancing more and moving and striking and moving, jumping over this guy's legs. And because I didn't know what to do. So then he started clinching me. He started grabbing my neck and he started elbowing me. He started kneeling me. And I didn't know what to do. So when the bell rang, I told my brother, so what do I do, brother? And he said, don't let him grab you. And I said, oh, great. He didn't know what to tell me. He had no idea because he never seen it either. So next time he he just came and grabbed my neck. I actually picked him up over my head. I threw him on his head. I threw him on his head trying to stop him. And he grabbed me again. And I picked him up and threw him again. Now, all the Thai people are getting pissed because they've never seen that before. And all the Americans are getting pissed because they've never seen elbows and knees and clinching before. Mm-hmm. So now you got the Thais pissed. You got the Americans pissed. They're all pissed. In the ninth round, he hits, I went to sweep his leg and he kicked me. I went on my back. I jumped back up and the fight went on. See, they bet by the rounds. They don't win like who's going to win the fight. Mm-hmm. It's like who's going to win the round. So by then, Chuck Norris, all of them, they were betting and I was up winning hands down because they didn't know that elbows and knees and clinching and low kicking were points, because nobody had ever seen it before. So then after that, the whole place started fighting. I mean, it's like Chuck Norris and, was like looking at the guy like, hey, pay up, man. He was up like 14 grand, whatever it was. And the Thai jumped up on the seat, went to elbow him, and Chuck Norris went back, and the fight went on. The Americans and Thais started fighting all the way up the bleachers and all the way around, like if it was a wave.
Wow.
All the way around the Olympic Auditorium. Helicopters came. It was crazy. And, these Thais were going outside. They were tipping cars over like a bunch of ants, man. They were just, I tell you what, man. It was the first time ever that Muay Thai was ever introduced to America. And so we ended up, they called it a draw, but by then they're just saying they called it a draw, trying to stop it. But they put my hand up and, that I won the fight that's because they still didn't know how to, give points to it. So then in Japan, they said, who's this American just beat this Thai champion? And so I got an invite with 4 others. And so we went as a 5-man team, went to Japan. And I was telling my guys, I said, hey, they're going to go right for your legs. So most of my guys got stopped. And so I was the anchor. And so Suzuki came out. They thought, I was wearing pants. And they told me I can't wear pants. And I said, well, I'm a martial artist. And they said, you can't wear pants. You have to wear shorts. I said, I'm a martial artist. I wear pants. And if I can't wear pants, I'm not going to fight. And so I picked up my pants. I said, see, I got nothing in my pants. I got no medals or nothing in my pants. I got nothing on my legs. So they're just pants. So they thought, so I started to walk off. I said, I'm not going to fight with shorts. And finally they said, okay, because they thought he was going to beat me anyways. And so we went all the way up until the fifth round. Then I knocked them out in the fifth round.
Nice.
And after that, it was quiet. I mean, you're talking about 17,000 people. It was a pin, and you can hear it. It was so quiet. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to. So I'm around putting my hands up and this and that. And then I did a backflip. And everybody, then I heard a little clapping. And I said, oh, that was eerie. And so 2 months later, they could not accept me taking their title. I was the first American to take their title, took their belt, and they were not happy campers. And 2 months later, I ended up going back, and I fought their champion that was undefeated. He came out of retirement to fight me, and I knocked him out in the fourth round. And after that, they kept on bringing champions. And after that, within the 10th champion I knocked out, they started bringing outside fighters. And the next thing on, I started being one of the Japanese. And I was the first American to be in their ceremonies and so forth. And I had the whole kimono, the whole thing. And so the rest is history. I went around the world. Introducing kickboxing to the world.
So for people who don't know, like, what is the big main differences between full contact karate and kickboxing?
Full contact karate is in the martial arts. You can sweep, you can do jump kicking, you can actually do a lot of spinning kicks, a lot of spinning back kicks, a lot of grabbing and takedowns and so forth. Mm-hmm. So in the martial arts, you can do a lot of technique. In kickboxing, I was doing all that. But kickboxing, most people would throw round kicks to the leg, like Muay Thai. They would do round kicks to the leg, round kicks to the head. They would do one reverse punch, and they would do thrust ball kicking. That's what Muay Thai or kickboxing were doing. But I created kickboxing like the martial arts. I was doing spinning back kicks. I was doing jump spinning back kicks, wheel kicks. I was doing axe kicks. I was doing things that's why they kept on having me come back, because they've never seen the technique like that. They were used to Muay Thai, low kick, right cross, and knees and elbows. That's what they saw. But mm-hmm. I introduced Japan completely something different and something new that they've never seen.
Wow. So at what point in your career did you decide that you wanted to start teaching? Did you start teaching before you retired or not till after you retired?
Let me put it this way. I was at 14 years old. I had the biggest gym in the United States at 14 years old.
Wow.
I was I was a great teacher then. To this day, I always thought I was a better teacher than a fighter. Okay. Since I was 14, I love teaching. Fighting, I can do. Mm-hmm. I'm blessed I do that, but I love teaching. And so I've been teaching since 14. I had my first gym. And from that point, my brother and we would run from our house all the way up to Sunland, Dahunga, which is 18 miles away to the gym. We would run all the way to the gym. We would teach, and then they would drive us back. Wow. And it's just something, I thought everybody did it. Mm-hmm. And, that's what, I don't know. I just thought that everybody ran, because I've been doing it since I was 3 years old, so I didn't know any difference.
Wow. So at that age, at 14, when you were running a gym, what style were you teaching?
My family's system, it was called Kempo Shotokan.
Okay. Because
we did hard styles and soft styles. So that was the name of it, Kempo Shotokan. But when I opened up my gym, I call it the Samurai Dojo. And okay. I had a samurai hat for my logo. It was a samurai hat with two cat eyes. Nice. And they said, why the cat eyes? I said, because the cat sees everything at night.
Nice.
And so that was my thinking back at 14 years old. That's what I was thinking.
That's really cool. And when did the Jet Center come about?
The Jet Center came at 1979, 1980. Why? It's because my brother-in-law, Blinky, and I was taking kickboxing because the word full contact karate, people were saying, what's full contact karate? What is that? Like, you're kicking and then, you're punching and stuff like that. And then somebody said, and I was explaining full contact karate, and they said, well, it's like you're using boxing hands and then you're kicking, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah. And so, I said, yeah. So I'm, and the word came out of my mouth. Yeah, I'm kickboxing. And so the word, I said, "Ooh, that had a nice ring." So I started calling it kickboxing. And from that point, I was going all over the place saying, "This is kickboxing. This is not Muay Thai. This is kickboxing." And the difference between kickboxing, I said, for what I was doing, completely different than Muay Thai, completely different. And that's what made kickboxing so popular, because I was doing something completely different in the Orient, completely different than that anybody's ever seen.
So when you opened the Jet Center, I'm assuming it was pretty successful pretty fast just because of your
Matter of
reputation?
fact, I had 40 countries. I had dormitory. I had saunas, jacuzzis, Japanese baths. I had a full-blown restaurant. I had upstairs, I had sports medicine. I had in the back, on the bottom, I had the state-of-the-art weightlifting. And then on top of that, it was a dormitory that I can hold 40 people sleeping upstairs. And, and then the women's side is the same. They had jacuzzis, saunas, Japanese baths. I mean, no, I'm sorry, they didn't have Japanese baths, but they had jacuzzis and saunas, and they had a beautiful where they do makeup and all that. I mean, my brother and I were just ahead of our time. And
Definitely.
you know what? When I was in Japan and I had toilet paper, I was drawing on the toilet paper. And my brother-in-law said, "What are you doing?" And I showed it to him. I said, "This is going to be our next dojo." And he said, "What?" And I said, "This is going to be our next dojo." And so I started explaining to him, and he said, "Wow, man, that's going to be nice." And I said, "Yeah." And we actually found a partner to come in and back us up. We did all the work. It would cost about maybe $3 million. Today, it would cost easy $12 million to $14 million to redo that.
Wow.
We owned the property, and it was such a beautiful gym that people came all over the world just to come in. I had fighters from everywhere that came, but it was a fighting gym. I had the top boxers. I had the top boxers come in, and they will come and spar and stuff like that, because it was such a beautiful gym. Because after they finished sparring and this and that, they would go in the weight room and do their thing. And I had people teaching weightlifting and so forth, and some for bulk, some for cutting, some for strength. And then they would go in the dressing room, they would take a jacuzzi, and then they'll go into a cold plunge. Some of them even like the Japanese baths we had in there. We had Japanese baths that you would sit down and then some didn't. Some couldn't get used to it, so that we had about maybe 10 different shower heads in the showers. Then we had a dry sauna, and we had steam room in there, and then we had. I mean, it was truly incredible locker room.
Wow.
People just wanted to come in just for the locker, just to come in and go into the jacuzzis and to the cold plunge and to the saunas. And I mean, it was unbelievable. And anybody got hurt, we just send them upstairs. We had full-blown doctors up there. It was incredible.
Wow. During its heyday, when it was super busy, super popular, about how many hours a day were you spending there training people?
Actually, you know what? We had classes. My fighters, we would get up and we will meet at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we will run the hills. After we run the hills, some will go back to the home, and some will come that were actually living in the dormitories will come back and they will eat. And then at 12 o'clock, we would do our heavy sparring. I mean, we had better shows sparring than they were, outside shows. I mean, we had some incredible sparring.
Nice.
And everybody there, I mean, and from boxers, I mean, we would go first, and then the boxers will come after, unless some of the champions will come in before us. And we would close the windows for the paparazzis can't come in and watch. And I tell you what, and it was like a school of boxers, of champions will come in with their trainers and this and that, and then they leave, and then all the kickboxers will come in at 12 o'clock, and we'll all do the sparring. Champions from all over the world will come in, and then they'll leave, and then we would have privates, and then the first class will start. The kids class will start at 4:30, and it was kickboxing, but the kids class was at I wouldn't say kids. They were 12 years old and up. We didn't take them any younger. You're 12 years old and up, because at that time the bones are strong. They're hard. They're not soft. And by the time they're 15, let me tell you, we came out with some incredible champions. I had 7 champions underneath me. And then at the Jets gym, the ring, I designed the ring to where it has lock wheels on it, and we can unlock them and roll it to the center. We can put 500 people around the ring, and we would have our own shows. And so we would we would actually debut a lot of guys from different parts of the world that would come, and they would debut and fight at the Jet Center. And they would fight and so forth. And we had, up on the balcony, we had, they would come and shoot. Everybody, all the people would shoot up there. We wouldn't let them get them on the floor, but they would be up there shooting from above into the ring and so forth. It was incredible, Jim. And so by the time up until 94 was my last fight. It was my last fight in 94. So my first fight was in 58. My last fight was in 95, actually. 95 was my last fight in Vegas and at the Mirage Hotel. And that was the first time the Winds ever let anybody fight there. I was the first to start it.
Wow.
And I was the first one there to actually start a fight at the Winds Hotel.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So how did Hollywood start for you? How did you end up getting involved in the movies?
Well, you know what? Actually, I did a movie called Down the Drain, and they asked me if I wanted to do. I had a student that was an actor, and he said, "Hey, you want to come in and see on the movie set?" I said, "Sure, I'll come and see you." So here I am. He didn't tell me what to do, so I'm there watching him, and then I end up standing. I didn't know I was in front of the camera, so the director said he must have liked my look because he said, "You." And I said, "Me?" He said, "Yes, stand over here. Matter of fact, create a fight scene with this guy." And I said, "Okay." And I didn't, so I got this guy and I was showing him different things and I created a fight scene with him. And my student didn't say anything. He was like, he was speechless. And he was just like, "What? You just supposed to come and see me. And what are you doing in front of the camera?" But so I ended up doing a fight scene with this guy. And so after the fight scene was over with and this and that, so I didn't know what to do because I'd never been on a set before. And so they said, "Okay, you have to sign here." And I signed. He says, "Your call is at 6 in the morning." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Yeah, you come back tomorrow at 6 in the morning." And I said, "What for?" And he said, you have to come back tomorrow morning to finish the scene. After that was over with, I told my student, "What does that mean?" He says, "Sensei, they want you to come back. You're on the movie." And I said, "What do you mean I'm in the movie?" He said, "Yeah, you're on the movie." And I said, "I am?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You have a better part than I do." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." But he says, "Please, Sensei, be here tomorrow at 6 o'clock. So I went over there at 6 o'clock in the morning. I had no idea what to do. So I'm standing. And so the director said, "What's your name again?" And I said, "My name is Benny." And I said, "Benny, go over there with that group, put a fight scene together between all of you." And so the stunt coordinator said, "Well, that's what I do." And he says, "I want him to do a fight, create a fight scene." Because he obviously liked what I did. And so I said, "Okay, well, how many?" And he says, "All of you fighting." So I told the guy, I said, "Well, who's the one that's leading here?" And he says, "I'm the main actor." And I said, "Okay, so you're going to beat us all up?" And he says, "Pretty much." I said, "Okay." So I said, "Start with him and we'll come in like this." And I created a fight scene. That's one thing I can do, man. I'm real creative. And I created a fight scene. So we showed it to him and blew the director. He said, "Oh my God, what is your name? You come here. You know what? I want you by me. I want you here tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Be here." And he said, "After you finish this, I want you to come." I said, "Well, I got other things to do." And he said, "Forget that. And next thing I know it, I'm on the movie. It was called Down the Drain. And next thing I know it, the next one right after that, I played a drunken hobo. I played a drunken hobo. And, these robbers come and they rob a bank and they see me. I'm on the bench all drunk and they put a suitcase down and they tore $100 bill in half and gave it to me. And they said, "Don't let nobody get this bag and we'll give you the other half of this." And they was running because cops were coming. So I'm thinking, okay, what the heck? And so I didn't know what to do. So I take the suitcase and I go to these two police officers. They were eating their lunch. So I knock on the door and to tell them I got a suitcase, and they're telling me, leave, get out of here. We're eating, go. And I said, but I have, and he said, leave. So I walk, and then these other two guys see me with the suitcase. So they come to get it, and I just kick the crap out of them because I'm thinking, I want that other $100. I'm thinking there's a lot of wine going on here. I'm not going to let that one go. And finally, so that's my career. That's where I started.
That's cool. So when did you start teaching celebrities? Did that happen before you got involved in the movies? Did they just start showing up at the Jet Center?
No, the matter of fact, the stunt coordinator, he had me. I was connected to his hip. He didn't want me to go anywhere, but I'll tell you what, he was my mentor, and his name is Charlie Paterni.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, not Charlie Paterni. His name was. Oh my God, I can't believe I. But anyway, he started taking me because he saw that I was such a good teacher that I can teach. And he said, "How long have you been doing picture fighting?" And I said, "For a while." And I never did in my life, man. But I said, "For a while." But I mean, I've been teaching the martial arts, but I've never. He called it picture fighting to me. I was thinking of doing demonstrations. That's all I was doing is creating stuff for demonstrations, live demonstrations, but he called it stunt work. And then they asked me, "Can you fall off that building?" And I said, "Sure." And I said, "What would I fall off on?" He said, "Can you fall into that airbag?" And I said, "Sure." And this was like 5 stories up. And I went up there and I looked. So I said, "How do you want me to fall?" He said, "Well, you're going to be running, you're going to get shot, and you're going to fall, and you need to move your hands so we can see that you're not a dummy, you're a live person. And when you hit the ground, just turn and hit the bag on your back." I said, "Okay." So I looked down and I put it in my head. That's what I'm going to do. First take, boom, no problem. And then they said, "Can you do it again?" I said, "Sure." And they changed the cameras with speeds and stuff like that. Went up there, boom. Hey, I was the one take kid. Boom, just like that. And that's how I started. As he wouldn't let me go. He just wanted, and he took me to movie with him because I was a great teacher and I learned very quickly. And he was mentoring me, teaching me how to do picture fighting, which I said, "Okay, I can do that." He said, "Can you do that?" "Sure, I can do that." And there's not one thing that I couldn't. The only thing that I forgot the bridge that I was on, but he says, "Can you hit that water?" He said, "The water is going to be pretty hard," but he says, "You need to take a flip and then land in your feet on that water, because if you don't hit with your feet and lock your legs," he said, "you can get pretty hurt." He said, "Can you do it?" I said, "Sure." And sure enough, boom, and they threw me off the bridge, and I had my hands waving this, and I did a flip, locked my legs. I went down, but about maybe 10 feet, my legs went forward, and I ended up flipping. And so I tweaked my back a little bit, and I got out. And they, everybody's clapping and this and that. They said, "That was great. That was great." This and that. They said, "You know what? We have to change the cameras and the film and this and that. Can you do it one more time?" I said, "Sure." But my back was hurting though. I mean, I didn't want to tell them nothing. So I did it again. But the second time I did it, I landed perfect.
Nice.
My whole body was straight and I went straight down. So after that, I said, "I'm not doing that one no more." So anyway, that's how I started my stunt acting. Then I ended up at the Lee Strasberg Academy. They were looking, the Lee Strasberg Academy, all acting. They never had any kind of, they already had about 300 stunt guys coming in, and because they wanted to teach stunt work as acting. So they called me, they heard about me and they called me. So I went in, and Lee Strasberg already passed away. So Dave Strasberg, which is his son, took over and said, "Have you ever did picture fight?" I said, "Sure, I did a couple of pictures, this and that." He said, "Do you know how to teach stunt work?" I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Do you know anything about cameras?" I said, "Sure." And I just happened to remember when they were talking about depth perception on camera. And he said, "Yeah, when the camera is from a distance and you're far away from it." I said, "You're talking about depth perception there?" And he said, "Yeah, you're right." He said, "You know what? You're hired if you want the job." And I said, "No, thank you. I just came in. I just came to, and so I said, "Thank you very much, though." And I walked on. So the secretary came running after me. I went outside the Strasbourg Academy. I went outside and he says, please, can you reconsider? Dave really likes you and so forth. And I said, I'm not interested. Thank you. And then he says, here's his card. Please. They called me the next day. And I said, I'm not interested. They called me the next day. Finally, on the fifth day, I just got tired of her calling me. So I went over there and I said, look, I'm sorry, your name? He says, Dave Strasberg. I said, Dave, I don't know if I would like you, and I'm sure you don't know if you would like me. But you know what? Let's give this a go. All right? Let's do it for a month and see how it works. 12 years later.
Wow.
But I created what is called stunt acting. Actors, they can do their own stunts, and stunt men can actually act because, again, if you can't act in front of that camera, you can't be believable, then you're no good to the lead actor. Mm-hmm. And if the actor cannot do little falls, because then they can't cut into it. So I was teaching the actors how to do rolls and falling and stuff like that, just basic stuff. But like fire burns and high dives and car hits, I wouldn't let them do that, but I would let them do like going over a couch, going over a table. I trained them for that. All the actors. No, I didn't care. Tell you the truth. The stars, if you want to so call, mm-hmm. They're the ones that gave me the hardest time. But it was like hell week. The first week was hell because they would push me, but I wouldn't give up and this and that. And I would keep. Finally, the second week, they gave in. Second week, they gave in. And then they started calling me. All right, Sensei, what do you want me to do? Then I knew, okay, I got them.
Nice.
They're ready to work. But it usually takes me a week to 10 days. The bigger the actors they are, the bigger stars they are, I really had to work. But no more than 10 days. By then, I earned their respect. I earned their trust.
That's cool.
Whether male or female. So that's how I got started in the acting part of it, teaching stunt acting at the Lee Strasberg Academy. And then I had my student. Right now, he's still working. He's still teaching. And because I wanted to get back into my art and I wanted to start traveling again and I wanted mm-hmm. to start doing seminars and so forth. So and he was with me to begin with. He's been with me since he was 17 years old. Wow. He's still at the Strasberg teaching stunt acting there.
It's impressive. I'm not sure if I read this somewhere and I'm curious, is it true that one of your students, David Lee Roth from Van Halen, dedicated the song Jump to you?
I have this gold album.
That's really cool.
Wow. Basically when I was training him, this and that, he had asked me, he said, your backflip. He said, you think you can teach me that? I said, absolutely. He said, you think I can do that? I said, absolutely. So when I was training him this and that, I taught him how to backflip and so forth. But it wasn't, I wasn't comfortable of him doing a backflip on concrete.
Right.
And so I said, we need to put something on there. And so he did a backflip, but he landed on his toes and his knees. And he said, no. I said, you know what? We're going to do something else. And he said, no, I want to do a backflip, Sensei. And I said, are you sure? He said, I want to do a backflip. So after he did the backflip and so forth on his video, Jump, mm-hmm. this and that, he got the gold record. And he said, thank you very much. And he gave me his gold record.
That's really cool. One of the movies I want to ask you about, because it's one of my favorite movies of all time, is Grosse Pointe Blank. You got to fight one of your students in it, which is one of my favorite fight scenes in the hallway of the high school with you and John Cusack. Just talk a little bit about that, because that had to have been fun.
Actually, when John was very young, he did his first movie, Saying Anything.
Yep, I remember that.
When he was like 17, 18 years old, somewhere around there. So I started training with him, and him and the other actor, we started, and he wanted to work. He wanted to do some action. So I started teaching him and so forth, and then he got to the point where he started to get really good. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he's 6 foot, he's 6'4", 6'5", and and for him to be doing spin kicks, he said, I want to do the spin kicks. I said, John, your legs, man, come up to my chest. I said, and he said, no, since I said, okay. I said, we're going to do that. Make it happen. So I started training with him every day, working. And then he got to the point where I would bring the other guys in, and I would tell him, I want you to hit him but stay away from his face. And our son, Johnny, would just load up on these guys. And this guy would look at me and say, hey, I'm going to go hard, man. If you keep that up, and Johnny's saying, go hard. And I said, oh, dude, here it goes. And they came after Johnny, and Johnny just knocked him out.
Wow.
And I said, holy shit. And I said, okay. In that case, I said, Johnny, hey, this is supposed to be sparring. He said, well, look at him. He came after me and this. And I said, well, you're right. Okay. And then I got him up and I said, what's wrong with you? He said, he started hitting me hard, Sensei. And I said, so why did you go after him like that? And he said, because, man, he was spooking me out. And he said, I just chased him, man, And he said, man, they said, no, I'm looking up at the ceiling like, what the heck happened? So I started bringing guys coming in. I had good students who will come in and work with him, kicking and punching. But you know what? Johnny was saying, don't tell him not to hit me, Sensei. Don't tell him not to. And so I would work with him. And so I put on the headgear. I'm not going to hit your face if you don't put on your headgear. And I would hit him, but I wouldn't hit him to jar him, but I would let him know that, hey, you've been hit. You don't move your head, you're going to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
But he started getting really good. He started really getting good. And then I had to calm him down. And, he got to the point where I said, don't get cocky on me. I said, calm yourself down a little bit. And then one time I said, okay, I'm going to have to humble you. I'm thinking in my mind, I'm going to have to humble him. He's getting too, because I'm bringing guys in and he's running circles around him. And I said, okay, he needs to be grounded. And so I started putting pressure on him and this and that. And when that, I hit him to the body, boom. And I just stopped right with the right cross going to his face. I just stopped. And he goes, Sensei. And I said, so you want to fight for real? He said, I'm an actor. And I said, then act like one. I said, quit acting like you want to go out there and fight professionally. And he said, well, I want to make it look real. And I said, yeah. Well, you know what? You're going real to them and you're triggering them. They want to come back real to you. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, we had a blast. And I made no bones about, I made no bones about when we do this film, I said, how do you want it? He says, I want it real, Sensei. I said, okay, we can go real, but just remember one thing. I have good control to your face. I will hit your face, but it with control. And I said, do you believe that? And he said, yeah, Sensei, I believe that. He said, so I can go to your face? He says, absolutely, Sensei. You know what? I trust you. I trust you and this and that. And let me tell you, man, he was hitting me. He hit me so hard with a side kick, kicked me on top of my chest. My feet came from under me. My head hit the concrete from behind me. And he said, oh, Sensei, are you okay? And I said, hey, I can take a shot. He said, all right, Sensei. I said, let's go again. Man, let me tell you, I had to put some ice on my back of my head from hitting that concrete. But I tell you what, when he hit me one time with a side kick, I went into the lockers. And man, when I got off those lockers, the numbers on the combination. Yeah. I had those numbers on my back. Wow. Let me tell you, man, he kicked me so hard they embedded in my back. I said, oh my God. But hey, we had a blast. Him and I. And I tell you what, he wanted it real, just like Jackie Chan. He wanted it real. And so because he saw that movie with Jackie Chan, he said, I want to make it real too, Sensei. And so Jackie Chan and I, we changed the whole industry in the fight game when it came to fighting, picture fighting. And me tell you, we changed the whole picture. And that's, so from that point, I continued it with Johnny.
Yeah, that fight scene with Jackie was good. That was on Meals on Wheels, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a great fight scene too. Yeah. Grosse Pointe Blank's one of my, I just watched it with my daughter about 2 months ago. The first time my 16-year-old daughter, and she loved it too. So much fun.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun, but I tell you what, man, that was scheduled for 3.5 months, 4 months, something like that. We did that whole fight scene and so forth. Usually that whole fight scene usually would take 2 weeks to do. We did it in 3 days.
Wow.
Because we knew each other so well.
Yep.
And the point is, there was no miss whatsoever. Because let me tell you, I felt every bit of it when I went home. I was sore.
Nice.
I mean, you got a size 14 foot, man. His foot went across my chest, you know.
That's so awesome. When did you first decide to start writing books? And when did you write your first book?
My first book was in actually 78. I did the first because what happened is when I started kickboxing, the word kickboxing in 76, people were still not clear about what kickboxing was. And I was going around dojos around here and I started going to different countries. And I said, you know what? They still don't get it. So I wrote this book, kickboxing book, the first kickboxing book in 78. And I started leaving that, and that became the Bible in every third world country. It became the Bible of kickboxing. And people use that to actually build the sport of kickboxing in their country. And so I built the Jet Center in 80. We start in 79. My brother-in-law and I said we're gonna find a building to build on this toilet paper. We're gonna build this gym on that I had on toilet paper. I said we're gonna build this gym, and sure enough, within a short amount of time we found the building. It was a big bowling alley.
Oh, wow.
And we found the building and so forth. And Blinky and I looked at it and we said, this is the dojo. This is the gym. And so in that, so we kept on thinking, so what are we going to call this dojo? Did you know that we found out who owned the building? And, you know, in 3 days, we closed escrow. In 3 days. Unheard of.
Wow.
Unheard of. But we closed it in 3 days. We owned that property. And the idea was, what do we call this dojo? What do we call it? And so our partner, you know, Jan Surchuk, he's a builder. And he said, man, you know, this is going to be, man, one hell of a center. And I said, yes, just call it Benny's Center. And Blinky said, just call it the Jets Gym. And I said, no. And then he said, Jan said, just call it the Jet Center. So it became Benny the Jet Center.
That's awesome.
And then created the logo. And the logo was the hard part is creating the logo. If you really look at my logo, it has such a lot of meaning. If you ever looked at my logo, it took us a while in my mind. You know, I went up in the mountains and I had this vision. And by the time I came home, I didn't go and get paper, man. I got toilet paper just to keep it rhythm. I got toilet paper and I started doodling on this toilet paper and I came up with the logo. And my logo is known all over the world. Every third world country is my logo. So I wrote the book, and when I wrote that book, I put the logo on it and took that logo in the book, and it became, like I said, the Bible, you know, of everybody, of kickboxing in every third world country. Everybody used that to build the sport of kickboxing in their country.
Nice.
So I built the Jet Center. We built the Jet Center, Blinky and I and Jan built the Jet Center to have a home base where people come around the world and they will come there to learn the sport of kickboxing and take it back to their country.
That's cool. So I want you to think back when you were 14 years old and you had your first dojo, and all the way through now, you're still teaching, you still do seminars, you still do online training. What do you think has changed the most about your teaching style over the years?
You know, back then, I created kickboxing to be a way of life. And a way of life is the I am concept, to where I can turn you inside out and mirror your truth. And your truth, we all hide until you're threatened. If I threaten you, everything you hide, in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, will come forward. Only when you're threatened, all that emotion will come up. And what comes up, fear. And what follows fear, anger. What follows anger, frustration. What follows frustration, anxieties. These are the emotions that we walk around in, that we hide very well. Because my father would tell me, you don't cry, you don't show that you're afraid, you don't show you're scared, you don't show that you're hurt, because people take advantage of you. So now I'm learning this when I'm 5 years old. So I never showed. And most fathers want their kids to be tough, want them to be strong, prepare them for life. But some do it in a harsh way. My father did it in a harsh way because He was a boxer. And so when people say, how you feel? I said, "Shit, I feel great. Even though I didn't feel great, man, I said I would never admit it. Why? Because my father told me, don't show it. So I never showed any kind of emotions. And that was the hard with most guys, most boys don't show emotions because we hide it because we've been taught by our fathers not to show it. Only when you're threatened, then it comes up, then it comes forward. And if it's not fear, anger, one of the two will show up first. Hey, and if it's anger, fear will follow right behind it. And after that, frustration. And then if you go to anxieties, man, that means, hey, I can't move. I can't think. I can't, And I said, well, you're a black belt. Why did you stop? He says, I froze. I just froze. So I realized I wanted to open up a jet center to mirror people's truth. And in the jet center, everybody in there, when you came in there, believe me, you felt a threat. You felt, because everybody, we had so many fighters from different countries in the dormitory will come out, and at 12 o'clock, they will be drooling to see who will come in. Like, like they put their hand, Sensei, I'll spar with them. Sensei, I say, guys, calm down, get your act together. But it was that kind of a gym that people in there, if you know what, you had no time for emotions in there. That's why we had so many champions in there and so many champions came out of there because, again, I would teach them not to, to not show emotions. I taught them 80% mental is focus. 20% of it is physical, which you're going to do anyways. And 99.9% of the rest of that is internal, which is emotional, that you do not add emotions to that 8% focus. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, when the sun was coming up, we would be running up in the mountains and I would be talking to them. This is where your energy, your gifts come from, your maker and whoever you call your maker. And I said, this is not about religion. This is about your belief system. And we would be running the hills and I would be talking to them, programming them as we were running. And when we get back, we go back to the gym, we take showers, we eat a little something. And then at 12 o'clock, I would program them. Here, you will not show no emotion whatsoever. This, you will look in his eyes and you'll reach in through his eyes and you'll grab his heart. And when you grab his heart, do not let go. That's how you win your fight. Do not show emotions, but you look in his eyes and you reach deep. So I was actually programming him. I don't know if you want to call it hypnotizing or what, but let me tell you, I had them, yes, sensei, yes, sensei. Let me tell you, man, they went out there and they battled. I had people from around. They will come up on our balcony and they'll get their food from the restaurant and they'll come up on the balconies. We had chairs and tables there. They will watch everybody spar. I'm talking about professional boxers. I was talking about professional kickboxers, professional karate. I mean, everybody. And it was a professional gym. And people would love to come. People, you know what? We can only get so many people up there. And people will get there, be waiting. And they will be calling in for their lunch so they can get their lunch and grab it and run upstairs and grab a table to watch. Wow. It was that kind of a gym. And the good part about it was live, it was action, but I would train all my guys there emotionally. Do not involve emotions. Do not involve emotions. This is focus. What do you want? Look into their eyes, reach, tap in, go into a deeper. And then at 6 o'clock at night when the sun came down, I would teach everybody and they would all meditate. And I would teach them in meditation, how to create a workshop where their power comes from and how to reach down and grab that power when they need it and so forth, and how to heal their wounds. And man, let me tell you, so we trained 3 times a day, 6 in the morning, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and 6 at night. Those were the 3 most powerful times of the day. When the sun came up, there was energy coming up. Right when the sun was over your head, Father, Son to Mother Earth, we were in the center, sparring with that energy going right through our vertebrae, from the crown of our head to our feet. That energy was blasting. And then at night, when the sun was coming down, is when we meditate, is when our soul started to calm down. It started to get to the point where it was rejuvenating, rehealing. And I was teaching them how to heal themselves at that time, at 6 at night. And then they will go, take a shower, take a jacuzzi, lick their wounds, do what they got to do, go upstairs and they would just think about what had happened. Some of them will write down what they felt, what I taught them, how they interpreted, and then they came to me and said, "Is this what you meant?" And I said, "No, this is what I meant." And they would write down what I meant. So they would always look back. It was like their Bible that they were writing down, and they would have it with them all the time at what I taught them, how they interpreted, and what it meant. And this is why we had the most powerful gym in the world.
That's awesome. So this question I got to ask you, and Tom Bleeker said I better ask you this question because he thought you'd have a great answer for it. What are your thoughts on modern MMA and the UFC?
You know, in the beginning of MMA, I'm looking at, hey, I started that back in 73, but only then there was no rules. It was just you fought the next person next to you. So that was already happening in 73, all the way up until 75. And then kickboxing came, and then they came up with rules. My brother had started creating rules for the W.K.L, and then the PKA was already started at 74. So in that, as far as I was concerned, hey, to me, in the street, there is no rules.
Yep.
It's emotional. When you're good under pressure, there is no emotions involved in the street. Why? Hey, I've been stabbed. I've been shot. I'm not afraid to die. What is he possibly can do to me? So therefore, I was teaching in that realm of warriors, gladiators, ninjas. I don't know what you want to call them, man, but I'll tell you what, I was creating warriors. And creating warriors, 80% of it was mental. 20% of it was physical. 99.9% of the rest of that was internal. Where do they get their power from? And this is what I was teaching there at the Jet Center. I was teaching warriors. So they would go out back to their country and build other warriors that we can. My thought that maybe I can build Olympic sport, that we can take it to the Olympic. If it was enough countries doing it, we can make it an Olympic sport. But obviously, Taekwondo beat us.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Anyway, that was my thought back then in the 80s.
Okay. So what about now then? What about modern, like the current state of the UFC?
Okay. So as far as the current right now, in the beginning, when they started, the word mixed martial arts, MMA, started by 75 when that was my last fight. And after that, there was nobody else to keep up kickboxing, keep it going in a long way. So they started with this MMA. They started calling MMA from 76 all the way up to 2000. And then cage fighting started really taking effect. It really started taking effect. And so in there was still great technique, round kick, hook kicks, they were doing a lot of beautiful techniques. And then in 2005, the techniques started dissipating. And then in 2010, then for some reason, the technique started going away. Then I started seeing less technique, more, one punch, tackle, take it down, ground and pound. And nobody can see that. So there was less people that were doing technique. They were afraid to do techniques because they were afraid to get grabbed and get going to the ground because they didn't know. So they started doing a little bit, just enough how to grapple, just enough to get in there and throw enough to get out of the way. And then some of the ground fighters started getting up and learning how to do some striking, just enough so they can strike and then go into the ground. And so it got to the point where they were saying, hey, they came to me and said, can you get some of these guys to stand up? Because when they go to the ground, people are paying good money to see the fight. But on the ground, they're looking up at the monitor. They're looking at the monitor because they can't see the fight on the ground. And we're losing front row seats. So they say, can you get them up on their feet to do more stand-up and stuff? And that's the problem. They started losing the technique because they were afraid to get tackled and go to the ground. And then they get tired out, and then they get arm barred or choked out or leg lock or whatever. And so now you got strikers who are afraid to really strike and let go because they didn't want to get grabbed and go to the ground because they didn't know what to do. So when 2000 came, everybody was doing just enough to go to the ground, just enough. And then the ground fighting was just enough of striking on top. But they lost the technique. They lost the Bushido way. And it became a tough man contest. Now you got a lot of these bouncers saying, shoot, man, if I hit them one time, man, they'll be talking to their ancestors, man, you know what? I'm too strong. But, that only happened, for a little bit. Maybe they got away with it for a couple of fights. And then after that, they got tackled, went to the ground and got choked out or armbarred or whatever. But they lost all the technique. So anyway, I think that's why it looks the way it looks. It doesn't really look a technical fight, and hopefully they will get some good warriors that will go back and bring the stand-up again.
I hope so.
That's what most of the promoters are looking for, is to get stand-up fighters that are really good and not afraid to go to the ground and scramble and get right back up on their feet instead of staying on the ground. If you can't submission your opponent, within 30 seconds, scramble, get back up on your feet, start up, stand, striking again. And that's what the promoters are saying. I'll give you 10,000 more if you can stop your opponent standing. I'll give you 15,000 more if you can stand up and stop your opponent standing.
Nice.
And they're giving them incentives to stand up, but because nobody can see it on the ground.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Makes perfect sense. All right. I got a few questions left here. I got this one. In all your years of martial arts, going back to, 5 years old, boxing, through everything you're doing today, is there one philosophy you've learned that just stands at the top of your list? It's really important to you.
When it really comes down to it, as far as I'm concerned, if it's 80% mental, then it's all about the I am concept of what you tell yourself and your belief system. Really is the art of war, is the I am concept. What do you tell yourself? What do you believe? And if you don't have a strong belief system and you're not able to convince yourself, they'll never work. And to me, of all of that, that's internal power, internal training.
Nice. Great answer. All right. This one, kind of a fun question. You've met and trained with so many people and you're friends with so many amazing martial artists. Who are like 3 or 4 names you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
You know what? First of all, to me, Sensei Jing LaBelle
nice.
is my hero. And I've known him since I was 5 and truly the master of disaster. And I'm telling you, I have, so much respect for him. And also, also another to put up in front was my best teacher was my mother.
Nice. Okay.
She was the best teacher when I was growing up. She taught me what internal training meant, what internal power meant when I was such a little kid. And she was always, I was, not that I was her favorite, but I was her favorite out of 10 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And she loved Duvall, but for some reason, she seemed to really, she used to tell me, you're special. And I said, well, all my brothers and sisters are special. She said, no, they are, but you're special. And you're going to do something special out there. And my mother always used to teach me a lot of internal understanding. And some of it I didn't understand, but I tell you what, she was my first teacher and my first hero that truly. And after that, my brother Arnold,
nice.
He was a great teacher, but you know what? He taught me more external, physical. My mother taught me internal. My oldest brother taught me external. A lot of physical strength work, running, this and that. Okay, that's great. But that to me, that was only 20%. And then when I started with Sensei Bill Rozaki, he was also external, but kind of a little bit internal, but more external than anything like my brother Arnold was external. Jump kicking, this and that, faster, stronger. Okay, that was great. And then when I met Mr. Parker, Mr. Parker in 64, 65, he was teaching me internal training like my mother. And half the time I would go and tell my mom, what does this mean? Mr. Parker told me this. What does this mean, Mom? And she would tell me. And then I'll go and tell Mr. Parker, my mother told me this. What does that mean? Because they were both talking internal training and that kind of a power. So I realized truly the power is internal, not external. It's internal, your belief system. And so between my mother, Hirazaki, and when I met Mr. Parker, was a lot of philosophy. It took me around the world, showing me different things. But when I had a chance to watch Bruce Lee, I watched Bruce Lee first in 64 when he first did a demonstration, and he was talking about internal power. I never understood what my mother was talking about internal power until he started explaining. And he had this guy, 245 pounds, with a metal plate on his chest and a chair 4 feet behind him. And he had his fingers on this metal plate talking about internal training, how he gathers up this power internally and this and that. And he went, ooh, and he hit the plate. This guy went flying back 4 feet, went over a chair. I jumped up. I said, I want to do that. And so with all that, I realized that he gave me the inspiration because I wanted to spar with him so bad.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I never had a chance to, but not to prove anything, but I wanted to spar with him so bad. And I think that between listening to him, his philosophy, watching him perform, I never had a chance to really work with him or work against him or spar. But in that, to me, people always say, we know you would beat Bruce Lee if he was alive. I said, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, he's the best because I would never know. So I would never know that. For as far as I'm concerned, he is the best. For what he's done, he is the best. And there'll never be another Bruce Lee. But I said there'll never be another Benny the Jet either.
That is very true.
And so with that being said, the internal training is truly the power of where people are missing on their journey. They're looking for an external power and they're missing the internal power of understanding why they exist. They're truly, because we all exist here and everybody here is brilliant, but they sometimes forget because they've been reprogrammed by whoever raised them. If it's not their parents, because their parents put all their emotions into them for protection. By the time, by the 3 years old, they're already being reprogrammed. By the time they're 5, they've just been reprogrammed by their parents' emotions for protection, but they have no experience of it. So from 5 to 10, they don't understand their parents' emotions. So they're out there testing it. Didn't I say not to touch that? Didn't I say not to go climb that? Didn't I say not to go over there? And well, we have no experience of it. You say, why can't I go in the room? And you said, if you go in that room, you get it, you're going to get in trouble. And now I'm thinking, why? How come I can't go in the room? So from 5 to 10, I'm testing it. Yep. I'm testing, why can't I? And then from, at the time I'm 12 years old, emotional, I'm starting to change, and starting to get pubical hairs. I'm a man now. I don't want to be told what to do. My voice is changing. By the time I'm 15 years old, people were telling me, I said, I know. And now I'm saying, well, a lot of my father's things that he taught me, I said, I'll never do it to anybody. I said, I'll never do what my father did to me. And I end up doing it to my friends.
Of course.
From 15 years old, 18 years old, I end up doing the same thing my father did to me, to my friends. So it's a program. Yeah. And when it really comes down to it, wow. The I am concept of what do you tell yourself? What do you think? Mm-hmm. How do you feel? And I think truly that's what the journey is all about.
Yep.
It's about your belief system.
All right. I just got a couple more quick ones really quick. Now this one, you can't pick one of yours. Do you have a favorite martial arts book?
Yeah, it's called Benny the Jet.
other than yours.
No, but other than mine, actually there's some great books out there and I can't pinpoint, but there's a lot of great philosophy books. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of spiritual internal books. There's a lot of spiritual books. I mean, you can't really pinpoint because each and one of them have something great, but every once in a while, it's almost like you would be walking with some friends and all of a sudden you hear somebody say something, you say, did you hear that? And everybody's saying, like what? And you didn't you hear that? And you say, well, hear what? And you know what? It wasn't meant for anybody. Mm-hmm. It was meant for you, not anybody else. And those, if you want to call it a God hit, so be it. But you're the only one that heard it, and it meant something to you, and it made sense to you. So I call those God hits, and I think that books sometimes remind you and who you are. Not that I have a favorite, mm-hmm. but most of these books that are internal. I like books that are internal, that have meat behind it, that have, that talk about internally about their journey and how they feel and how they seem to look at things in a different way. Because if somebody says, look at that, there'll be 10 guys looking at it with all different opinions of what they're looking at.
True.
So I think that, I can't really pinpoint a name of a book because there's a lot of books out there that I read that, that some I connect to deeply, internally, then some I said, oh, that's nice, nicely put. I never heard it put like that. Okay, that's great. And then there would be, when I do seminars, there'll be some great philosophers. There'll be some great masters that will be talking out there. And I will listen to them. Every once in a while, somebody will grab my attention and I'll walk toward them and I will say, you said this. Why did you say that? And they say, I said, well, what's the meaning behind you saying that? What's your experience behind you saying what you said? And then they would tell me their story and how they understood that. And I look at it and I said, you know what? I can relate to that. I can connect to that.
Nice.
I couldn't connect to what you said, but the way you said it is what made me ask you, how did you get to that conclusion? And when they told me, that I can relate to.
Okay. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
Well, you know what? I have to admit then that everybody, when it came down to the Green Hornet and
Yep.
you come on the that was the first thing that came out, and it was a lot of action.
Mm-hmm.
And in that action, I can relate to all the kicking and punching and jumping and, I can relate to all that. So that was kind of one of my favorites because I can relate to all of it. And then a lot of it, I would think, why would they do that? How come he did this? Why would he, and I would break it down. So when I go to movies with action, my wife doesn't like it. She said, I don't want to go with you. I said, what? She said, man, she said, you don't know how to look at a movie to enjoy it. Hey, you got to break it things down. Oh, look at that. Boom. Okay, this and that. She said, you're no fun to go to a movie, man. You're breaking it down and this and that. And she said, what I hate about you is you tell me the ending of it, your version of it. And she said, I don't want to know that. I want to see it. And I said, oh, sorry about that.
That's awesome.
She said, you're no fun. You're no fun to go to a movie with. But anyway, I just can't help it, because
that's okay. All right. Well, that brings to the next question. How about now? This, you can't pick one that you've been in though. It has to be one you haven't been in. A favorite martial arts movie.
You know what? To tell you the truth, if you're talking about me being in a movie is one thing, but talking about a martial art movie out there, that I see, like John Wick and all them,
Yep.
there a lot of it's, to me, I look at a story and a purpose and reason why they're doing what they're doing. And it's almost like they had no choice but to stop that person because their loved one was in danger. And they didn't care about their life. They cared about he cared about his loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I like movies that have something that has a good story other than just killing, another jump kick, snap his neck, break his leg, and trying to be clever how to kill somebody, because it's all about, okay, how can we kill somebody clever? I already killed them like that. Okay, how many? I already killed them. Okay. And they're trying to, I said, I look for a story. If there's killing in it, I said, let it be a reason for doing it. Let it be a reason for a protection, for an understanding that it will be a lesson for the next generation, for something that somebody else will learn. Their kids, their grandchildren, and so forth will learn something from it. And I'm always looking for something with a good story that people look at it and will walk away and say, wow, man, I can relate to that. So I look for movies that have a deep something with a good story. And the action, I look at and I said, well, there's a reason why. I can see why he did what he did.
Mm-hmm.
I can see why he stopped that person. I can see why he stopped that woman, from hurting herself. And the only way he did that is he would have to knock her out in order to stop her to stop killing herself and so forth. And sometimes you have, but see, there's a purpose for doing something like that,
Yes.
I don't believe in a man hitting a woman, but there's sometimes a woman that, that are going berserk, that are taking stuff that they become extra strong. And sometimes you have to stop them in a way that you have to physically, because verbally is not going to stop them. So physically you have to stop them so they don't continue hurting themselves or somebody else. I look for movies like that has good story.
Okay.
And it has a purpose of doing what they're doing.
Good. All right, my final question, and same thing. You can't pick one of yours. It doesn't have to be martial arts. Just a favorite movie fight scene. You like breaking them down and figuring out. So what's one you've broken down really well and you really enjoy?
Well, that's there's I see so many fight scenes out there, and there's some actors that are really brilliant when it comes down to action and so forth. But whether you want to call me old fashioned or oh man, I can't believe I just drew a blank on his name, but Greenhorn, he came and he would a lot of philosophy and can't think of the actor's name. He's Caucasian. It was very well known and it was on TV. I can't believe I can't think of his name, but it was very I really because he would always talk about philosophy and he would go and take care of something, take care of a problem very quietly, this and that. And then he would walk off quietly without making a big scene. And he was kind of shaved head and so forth. And
not from Kung Fu, David Carradine?
David Carradine.
Oh, okay.
That's him. You know what?
Yeah.
I liked, even though some of the technique to me, for who I am and for what I did was kind of weak.
Yes.
But for what he stood in his philosophy and for what he did, the writers had a good idea about, of fighting for the right purpose and for the right reason. I kind of like that, He had a purpose in his walk, in his journey, he had a really nice purpose in it. And I like to feel, because for me, I never hit anybody out of anger or bitter. I mean, to me, when I fought, I performed. I've always was the people's choice, and that's what I always wanted. I said I fought because I'm the people's choice. I fight for them. I came to give them a show. I didn't come to hurt him. I didn't come to prove nothing. I came to give him a show. They came to pay for a show, and I came to give them a show. And in that was my philosophy. It was not about hurting somebody. It's not about knocking them out and this and that. It didn't matter to me. All I knew is win, draw, or lose, people will walk away and get their money's worth. No matter what, they will get their money's worth and be entertained. So I still kind of feel that way at this point in time in my life that I have nothing to prove. I just go out there and I did it for the love of it, not because I had to prove something, and not because I wanted a belt. It never entered my mind whether I was going to get a belt or not, or whether I was going to lose a belt or not. Never entered my mind. It didn't matter to me.
Wow.
All I know is people will leave and walk away fulfilled and get their money's worth.
Yeah, you did it for the right reasons. That's good. That's something to be very proud of.
Yeah, well, to this day, that's my belief system. That's how I feel.
That's good. Well, sir, I just want to thank you. This has been such an honor to have you on the show. I've loved hearing your stories, and I'm so glad we made the time to do this. And before I let you go, any last minute stuff you want to get out there? And I'll put links for your website and everything for your online training and your books and everything, so people can check that out. But any last minute thing you want that I maybe forgot to ask you?
Well, you know what? You said it all at one shot, and I couldn't say it any better than that. But absolutely, that I have all the above. And right now, I'm just in the middle of my documentary, and
nice.
I haven't talked about it because I'm right in the midst of it. And after that, I'm doing a movie right after that with it. So I got a lot of things going on. But right now, my last book that I've been working and thinking about is about. See, everybody writes a book, or they want me to write a book about what I've done. I am not. I keep on telling people, truly, I am not of what I've done. That's not who I am of what I've done and who I really am. Because people always think they know me. People will say, I got your books, your videos, this and that. I know who. I said, no, you don't know who I am. You only know what I've done, but you don't know who I am. I want to write a book and internally and who I am on my journey and how I look at things through the windows of my eyes and how I feel.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm going to leave that book, an internal book of who I am and who I really am and why I exist on this earth and what I came here to do and what I'm leaving here with. So That will be my last book.
Okay.
And that's the one I will leave to this world when I move on my next journey.
I will be waiting to I can't wait to read it. I mean, I'll definitely have to wait a while, but it'll be another one to add to my collection. But once again, I truly appreciate your time. This has been so much fun, and I can't wait to get this episode out for people to listen to.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and it's truly, I will see you when I see you.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
Okay. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.